I'm Monty. This is the Marriage Bites podcast.
We get real about the joys and challenges of marriage through bites of wisdom we have learned over the years.
Our aim is to share this wisdom with you so your marriage won't bite.
All right, you ready for this?
I guess.
All right. So, this is us.
Now we don't know what to say. We've been planning for weeks.
And I'm like, Okay, so why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I already know it, but they don't.
Yeah. You might be horrified about what you hear. All right, so I'm Monty. I grew up in Washington State, in a little town in the middle of nowhere. We farmed growing up. We did dairy cows and we did row crops, and it was a great place to grow up. Did lots of stuff. Worked really hard. Rode motorcycles. Did a little bit of hunting. When I guess I got older, I went on a mission for my church and then went to college. Went to a junior college in eastern Idaho, where I studied animal science. And my whole plan was to go into dairy farming. But before that dream could occur, my dad sold the dairy. Dang it. So I ended up going on to university and got my bachelor's degree. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, where I came from and what I did.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty boring.
Not boring, but nutshell.
There's a lot of details that are really exciting.
Yeah, we'll fill all those in
and
as we go.
Pretty horrifying, but
yeah, just totally. Yeah. I'm surprised nobody died. Seriously.
There were times when we probably should have died.
I mean, right?
Yes, from swimming in canals to swinging with our boom truck. Building forts and knocking hay bales on each other. Yeah, we should have died.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm glad that never happened. I'm glad everybody's good. Everybody's safe.
I'm glad as well. That would have really, really not been good.
Totally ruined your day.
Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up in Utah. I am one of 9 children.
Holy smokes. 1 of 9? Where are you at in that 1 of 9?
I'm the 6th child.
The 6th. See, I was the 3rd.
Yeah.
We're both middle kids.
Yes. We had what you might call a hobby farm, but my dad's actual profession was an attorney. So that was probably a pretty stressful job for him. My mom, pretty much a saint.
Knowing your parents, I believe that. Most of your siblings probably believe that too.
Yeah. My mom's amazing. My dad is amazing. So I have 4 older sisters and an older brother. And then there's a sister, a brother, and then a sister. So
how many dogs did you have growing up?
At least 2. We had some cows. We had horses, goats.
Dang goats. Never
any chickens. We didn't ever have pigs. But we did have to milk the goats. That was not my favorite job. It was mostly my older brother's job, but sometimes I would take over for him because he had something else he had to do. We would haul hay sometimes to feed the animals, and when I was 5, my mom put me in piano lessons. When I was in high school, I was in the color guard. That was super fun.
What is color guard?
It's flags. So when you see a marching band and you see the ladies or guys twirling the flags and dancing around the field, that was us. It was so much fun. I was also heavily involved in musical things at that time. I played the flute in the band. I played in the English handbell choir that we had for a couple of years in high school. What else?
Wow, your bio makes mine look like a dump.
No, not
There's
at
so
all.
many things. I didn't do it well.
No, I'm just better at talking about myself.
Maybe I should say more about myself. Anyway, go ahead.
After I graduated from high school, I went to Ricks College, what was then called Ricks College, which is now BYU Idaho.
Yeah, me too.
And that's where we met.
We did.
Yes, we
did.
did.
Are we talking about that today?
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
Oh, boy. Okay. Do you want me to start on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to Ricks College at the time, and I'd been working over the summer building grain bins, and I am telling you what, that was a terrible job. My employer was a slave driver, didn't pay very well. But I was a farm boy, and so I knew how to work, and I knew how to work hard. They actually promoted me within the first few days to being kind of like a supervisor. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Anyway, I started having some carpal tunnel issues while building grain bins. And so I decided, you know what? This really blows. I'm going to go back and go to summer school, take a few classes. So I did. And the thing with Ricks College at the time, you have what's called family home evening groups. And these family home evening groups usually would consist of one apartment of guys and then 2 apartments of girls. And you'd get together and do an activity once a week. It was fun. And so Andelin moved into one of those apartments, and that's how I met her. Mm-hmm. And almost from the beginning, we started to battle. She showed up, and I started throwing pillows at her, and then we started fighting over... What were we fighting over?
The ball.
Yes, a big plastic ball.
Oh, my gosh.
And there was no... I don't know. There was no conscious thought about it. It was just a big fight.
We were just messing around.
We were. I mean, there was one time when her roommates came home and we had taken couches and upended them and built forts, and we were crawling through them. It was super juvenile.
I have a picture of that. I have a picture of you with both couches upside down on top of you, and you can see your head kind of sticking out from between the 2 couches. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Here's this adult guy, bald, mind you, acting like he's 5. It was fun.
Totally. We had so much fun together.
We did. And so I knew within just a few weeks that she had attributes that I thought would make a good spouse. And so I began pursuing her. And she didn't realize I was pursuing her for weeks, if not months.
It was a while.
It was a while. So, and she actually had a boyfriend at the time. And I was like, oh man, this is almost insurmountable. But I like to study war history, and I really enjoy understanding tactics. And so I came up with a battle plan to win her heart over and to woo her to my side.
So romantic.
I know, so romantic. So I began using spies, which were her roommates, who I was friends with.
Totally rude.
And they started helping me. So it was a lot of fun. She finally figured it out, though, when the fall semester started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so about the fall, we got together officially, and a while later, we decided it was time to get married.
Yeah, not a whole lot while, but...
long enough.
It was long enough. Enough to cover the wall, right?
Right. And so we got married in January of 2000...
Oh, no.
Wait.
2001?
2000.
2000. Are you sure?
No, we got married 2001. You're right.
So what happens when you've been married for 20 plus years? You start forgetting things.
Yeah, so we got married in 2001, and we stayed at Ricks College for 1 semester after we got married. And then we went to Utah State University.
Soon after had our first kid.
And then soon after that had our second kid.
Yeah. What is wrong with us? We were busy back in those days.
I mean, right?
Yeah. Crazy. I like to think we were athletic.
Okay, so after our first kid was born, I chose to stay home and take care of our kid and then kids. And Monty, what did you do?
I continued going to school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to the business school there at Utah State University. I had a good time doing it, but I also had a part-time job working for the school. I was cleaning carpets and scrubbing toilets. So I always have a career to fall back onto if my current career falls apart.
That's always good.
I can clean a toilet like none other.
He is really good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I am not for hire right now. Just for the record, if you want me to come clean toilets, I won't. Well, I will for the right price. I guess I am for sale.
But not currently looking for employment.
Currently not looking for employment as a toilet scrubber.
So when you finished school at Utah State, we then went to Washington State.
We did. We went to Washington State, and I got a job up there working at a frozen vegetable food plant. And it went out of business the first year. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty intense when I got laid off for about a week. But then I got another job at a fresh cut vegetable plant nearby, and it was really tough. Yeah,
that was not your favorite job.
It was not my favorite job, and part of it was being new, inexperienced. Boss wasn't the greatest.
The commute wasn't awesome.
The commute wasn't awesome. So I decided that, I'm going to start following a dream I've had, which is to go into law enforcement. There's a lot of different things I wanted to do. I thought about being a pilot. I thought about becoming an optometrist, a crop dusting pilot. I even thought about going into the Air Force. But I thought law enforcement would be fun. And I'd always been interested in law enforcement. When I was a kid, I would watch the show Chips with Ponch and John. And the show mesmerized me. I loved motorcycles, and they were cops, and they shot guns. And I'm like, this is great. I like motorcycles. I like firearms. I like to drive fast within the speed limit.
Oh,
and
of
course, right. And I decided to go for it. And so I applied with a whole lot of agencies in Washington State and then 3 agencies in Idaho. Mm-hmm. And I tested with a lot in Washington, and I tested with some here in Idaho. And I was on hiring lists, but I just couldn't quite make it.
It took a while.
It took
was
a
it
while.
Like 9 months or something?
Yeah, probably 9 months. In fact, I almost got on with an agency in Central Washington. I won't name it, but it starts with a yak and ends with a ma. And almost got on with that sheriff's department, but I failed the psych test. And the psychiatrist told me that I would never make it in law enforcement, especially working on the road, because of my sheltered upbringing and being sheltered because of my religion. It was a huge blow to me. Huge blow.
I remember that.
Because I knew I was tough enough to do it. I knew I wasn't someone who was, I shouldn't say weak-minded, but somebody who couldn't handle the job. Mm-hmm. And so, boy, it really upset me, but I persevered. And I think that's a really important thing that I learned on the farm growing up, is that even though you may fail, you need to continue to persevere, because eventually things will get better, or you'll improve, or you'll decide, oh, maybe this is what I shouldn't do, and you move on to something else. But at least you're moving forward. And so I continued moving forward, and I was hired on with an agency in the Boise area in Idaho. And I've been there for 17 years.
Yeah.
Working the road.
Making it,
and now I'm a supervisor.
It's
water under the bridge.
That's just what I was going to say. It's gone and it's past, and maybe it's a good thing that we're here instead of there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It all worked out. So when we moved to Idaho, we had 2 kids.
We did.
That was, what year was that?
We moved here in 2005.
That's right. We came here in 2005. We've pretty much lived here in the area ever since. Had 4 more kids since then.
What is wrong with us?
It's like 1,000 kids.
Why can't I have 3 monies and no kids? I think that's what Homer Simpson said.
So,
we love our kids, by the way.
Totally.
Yeah.
We won't sell any of them.
Well, for the right price, just like I'll clean toilets for the right price.
If you sell one of our kids, I'm going with them. So
I'm going to need to get a new wife.
Yeah.
Crap.
Good luck with that.
That's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work. Okay, in 2009, our oldest child was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I was expecting our 4th child at the time. So in addition to, I was probably about halfway, I was probably 4 or 5 months along by then. So in addition to sort of the stress of now we have a new baby coming, and now we have our oldest kid who kind of feels like a brand new baby as far as like not knowing how to take care of him and having to learn a whole lot about what he needs and all of that. It was really a lot for me to handle at that time. But we figured it out, we got through it, and we will, I'm sure, be talking about that in more detail in the future. He's 20 now, so...
Still alive,
doing
thriving.
Really well.
I think there was some interesting things that came up when that happened. For me, there was self-blame for a variety of reasons. The day that he was diagnosed, I'd filled him up with soda pop and sugar and donuts.
Bread and Reese's and Snickers.
All the things that type 1 diabetics shouldn't eat, and that actually, I think, pushed him over the edge.
Yeah.
So I blame myself for that, but also the fact that, we biologically created this child, and you start to blame yourself.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. It's not rational, but it was such a heavy load. Mm-hmm. And then the thought that it was almost like a mourning that my kid is now going to have to deal with this his whole life.
Yeah, it definitely changes a lot of what you think about your life, what your life is going to be. You think everything's going to be a certain way, and then all of a sudden you find out something that's like tells you that it's not going to be that way ever again. It's not going to be what you expected, and
Right.
there's
Right.
definitely a grieving process, a learning curve, and like all of that kind of all falls on you all at once, and it's not easy, but
Yeah, it's absolutely not easy, and like with that sheriff's office I didn't get hired on, it was all about perseverance, and I think we persevered through that.
yeah.
We didn't just give up and fall apart, and it's important not
Although
to do so.
sometimes we wanted to.
We absolutely did. We
Yeah.
absolutely did.
Yeah. But when it's your kid, you can't just give up on your kid and be like, sorry.
Right. Right.
You have to.
You have to push through.
You want to because you love your kid more than you hate whatever you have to deal with.
Right. Right.
So we moved houses in about 2016. And right around that time, I found some resources that there were some books that I read. There were some people I started following online. And we started to realize that the marriage that we had built wasn't everything that we wanted it to be. And so it was about that time that I started listening to podcasts, and I started to really understand that the reason I wasn't happy is because we didn't have the kind of marriage that we wanted. We had largely built a role-based marriage up to this point, where the man does these things and the woman does these things, and this is how it's supposed to be. And realizing that that really wasn't going to work for us, and that despite our cultural upbringing and what had been modeled to us by our parents and our grandparents, that we could find something better, that we could figure out how to do this marriage thing in a way that works for both of us so that we both have room to thrive.
I think the whole role-based part of it was something that was entrenched in us. We had been taught it from such a young age, and it was difficult to know or to do anything else.
It was all we knew.
But there was somewhat of an awakening that helped us realize that we can do something different. And the past and the culture and the roles that we'd been taught didn't really work in our day and age. They sort of worked in our parents' age and probably worked better in our grandparents' age, but the world has changed, and we need to change with that in order to be successful. And a lot of that culture and a lot of those roles, we belong to the same religion, and I think our religious upbringing plays a huge and has played a huge role in that. Not to say that our religion is bad. We love our religion, we love our church, but there's things that weren't doctrine, but they were cultural. And cultural things sometimes need to change.
Right. And so we started sort of breaking out of that. And we've found that it has been so good for us each personally. And it's also really been powerful for our children.
Yeah. Not to say that we've arrived. I think we're still on that road.
Oh, totally.
We're still on that road, and we're still improving. Still figuring it out as we go.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that for everybody will be probably a lifelong.
Well, I don't think you can ever solve your relationship. I don't think you're ever just done with it. Okay, we have it all figured out. Okay, we're done. We're good for the rest of our life. There's always things you have to work on. There's always things that you learn. Things are always shifting every time there's a diagnosis or a new baby or a new job or a new school, or now we're at the point where some of our kids are actually leaving the house, and now that shifts things even more. And the kids get older, and so things are always changing and always shifting, and there's always new things to figure out. There's always things to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is nice to see the kids leave the house. Not only for our food budget or our power budget, but
Well,
it's
for
just
me,
nice.
it's just been so fun to be so proud of our kids, to see what they're doing with their lives, to see how successful they are. And
That's what I meant to say. But they do eat everything.
no kidding.
I don't know if we said this, but we have 6 boys. We don't have any daughters, though we want daughters. And that's maybe a topic we can talk about in the future.
Yeah.
But we have 6 boys, and they eat like dadgum cows.
I
or
can't
horses.
tell you how many times I'm just finishing cleaning up dinner and somebody comes in and opens the fridge. Mom, I'm hungry. I'm like, no, you're not. We ate 20 minutes ago. No, I ate enough at dinner, but now I'm hungry again. I'm like, are you kidding?
And the stupid thing is that they're like herd animals. Then the rest come in. They're like, oh, we smell food. And they come in and they start making things.
Yeah.
People wonder why our food budget is crazy. It's because these boys eat everything.
Yeah, they do.
I'm waiting for them to start taking bites out of the walls.
That might have happened.
It may have happened.
To wrap up, we kind of wanted to just talk about some of the things that we've seen improved in our marriage so far, and just kind of where we're going with this, why we're doing this podcast in the first place, and to hopefully invite you to come along our journey with us.
We're not saying we're experts by any stretch of the imagination, but we have 20 plus years of experience in marriage, and I think we've taken time to really look at things, and I think we've seen a lot of other marriages out there. We've seen successful ones, ones that have fallen apart, and I think we have something to add, I guess.
Yeah. Something to bring to the conversation.
Right. And hopefully people will be able to get something from what we say and realize that, oh, we're not the only ones. Because I know there's a lot of times when we felt like we were the only ones having these things.
Yeah.
I almost said problems, but it's not problems. It's just...
Well, we thought there was something wrong with us because it wasn't working.
Right.
Until we realized it's not us that's the problem. It was the system that we were using. And now we're changing up the system. So now our relationship is far more intimate than it was.
Right.
We share what we're truly thinking.
Which can be scary.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Once you're on the other side of it, or you've seen a glimpse of that intimacy, you don't want anything else. And it's really great.
Yeah. You can't ever go back from that. Once you understand what you were missing, you never want to go back to how it was before.
You don't want your marriage to bite. And so hopefully the little bites or nuggets of information we can give everybody will hopefully help their marriage not bite.
Right.
Hence the name of our podcast. Dun da da da!
Okay, so where we are now. We have discussions rather than to prove ourselves right. We are much more geared to understanding where the other one is coming from and then kind of seeing where our two perspectives can come together.
Yeah, and how the other is feeling. There's times where I think I know what you're thinking and feeling, and I really don't. Sometimes it takes time to understand that.
Yeah.
Verbal language is not always the best tool for communication.
That's true. And even when you're looking at somebody's facial expressions, you think, oh, I know what that look means. But you've said things to me, and I was like, that's not what I was thinking at all. I was thinking about something that's totally benign compared to what you thought I was thinking. We also come together to figure out how can we make this work for us rather than, like, how is this supposed to be?
I guess not using other people's example to create our own life, our own situation, but we come up with it on our own. Something that works for us.
Right. And I'm happy that we're able to model a better way for our children than our parents did. And I love our parents. I know that how they lived was the best thing for them. But I am happy that we can hopefully at least give our kids a little bit better start than we had. I mean, doesn't every generation want their kids to do better than they did? I know I've heard my parents say that.
Yeah, I think so. Well, at least as successful. Maybe not as successful, because then you want to be top dog. I'm just teasing.
Okay.
What else? Is that all we got?
There's one more thing. About a year ago, I decided to look very closely at becoming a life coach. Now, this is something that I'd considered off and on for a long time, but I don't think that this would have been really possible for me to do if I hadn't been having some of these shifts that we've been having in our marriage and in our relationship and in how we see ourselves, not only as individuals, but also as a couple. So I was able to get to the point where I could even consider that I could do something besides being a stay-at-home mom, that this other thing, this life coaching thing, that I had considered it for a long time, but just never thought it would ever be possible for me. But about a year ago, I decided, okay, this is what I feel called to do. So now that I have life coach training, I have the wisdom from my experience and all of the books that I've read and all of the information that I have really gone deep into. I'm a deep diver, right? So I have the knowledge, but also the tools. I feel like I can really quickly get to the heart of what's happening, what's causing the friction, what the problem is. And I feel like I'm really good at helping walk people through that and help them gain the awareness that they need in order to have their own shifts, their own changes.
For them to figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure out their own
answers.
answers.
As a life coach, I never tell people what to do. I just show them what's happening for them, and then they make the changes on their own. It's such an amazing process to watch. And I am also using the same process on myself. And it's also interesting to watch myself grow and change. And it's such a privilege to help walk other people through this process as well.
Now, so you concentrate on law enforcement wives, but really the principles that you're going to be discussing with clients really is good for any relationship, though. Is that correct?
Yes. And if you think about relationships, everything is a relationship. You have a relationship with your spouse, but there's also your relationship with your children. And also you have the relationship between your children and your spouse. And it's really important to know, when do I step in? When do I step back and let my spouse have whatever relationship that he wants to have with our children? And there are times when a wife maybe should step in and should set a boundary, or maybe there's times when it's best to step back. In addition, you have your relationship with yourself, which is perhaps the most important relationship that there is. There's also your relationship with the law enforcement profession even. And so if you start expanding what you think about as a relationship, pretty much everything that exists in the world, you have a relationship with.
So if people are listening to this podcast and they are like, wow, I would love to be coached by you, but I'm not a law enforcement wife. Would you take on people who are not a law enforcement wife?
Yes.
Or what if they didn't want to be coached about relationships, but something else?
Yeah.
Are you trained to coach them?
I really am trained to help anybody with any problem.
Great.
The tools that I have really do work no matter what the issue is. A big part of being a good life coach means to have the capacity to love, the capacity to be open-hearted and to hold space for the client and not judge the client. And I don't know why, but I feel like this has been a gift that I've had my whole life. I think it's really what makes or breaks a life coach.
All right.
So, anything else?
Nope. Episode 1 is done.
All right. Number 1, in the books. High five.
Bam! Thanks for listening to the Marriage Bites podcast.
Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the fun.
Let us know what you took away from this episode by sending us an email at info@andelinprice.com.
You can also see what we're up to on Facebook and Instagram at Andelin Price Coaching. Or you can visit my website, andelinprice.com, to learn more. See you next week.
Bye. Hey!
I'm Andelin.
I'm Monty.
This is the Marriage Bites podcast.
I was supposed to do that part of it.
Oh, snap. Start again.
Oh!
Okay, ready?
Yes.